Hey everyone, how's it going? Cloud here, and welcome to my guide on the Dwarf Slayer assignment. Now, if you're watching this guide, you're here for one of two reasons. Either you're aiming for 99 Slayer and want the best methods of dealing with this Slayer monster, or you're already 99 Slayer, aiming for 120 and wanting the best method to capture this monster's soul for your Slayer Codex. Whatever reason you're here, this is the guide for you. Now, in this guide we'll be going through the following: the requirements to be assigned this monster as a task, which Slayer Master assigns them and how many, best locations for the most effective kills, strategies and weaknesses of the monster, recommended equipment from highest to lowest, tips and tricks to obtain the soul for your codex or dungeon, social Slayer and its rewards, key drops to collect including handy items to help with this. Now, if you've already obtained 99 Slayer but haven't started the Sunken Pyramid Slayer Codex sort of activity, make sure you click the annotation in the video to view that before watching this one. You'll also find a link in the description below. Now, you can choose to watch a certain part of this guide if you wish, or you can just simply play through the whole video. If you go in the description, there's links to each individual part and the time to skip to that section. Now, for the Dwarf Slayer assignment, I'm going to cover both a low level version of this monster and a high level version of this monster, and then you can choose which one you want to go for depending on your level and preferences. Both will count towards your Slayer task and have a chance of dropping its soul, but the level and experience will obviously differ between the two. So for the low level version, we have the standard Dwarfs. So for the standard Dwarfs, there's no Slayer level required to be assigned them as a task. They are level 9 combat, have 350 life points and have a max hit of 28. They fight using a melee attack style and they have a magic style weakness. And for the high level version we have the Khaos Dwarves. So again, no Slayer level is required for the Khaos Dwarves. They are combat level 47, they have 1700 life points and have a max hit of 170, and like their lower level counterpart they have a melee attack style and have a magic style weakness. Again, mostly air spells, but it can differ. Now, as for Slayer Masters, the only Slayer Master to assign Dwarves as an assignment is Churail. Also, Churail can be found southeast of the Taverley Lodestone, and you can see the little Slayer icon on the mini-map. Now, if you completed the Wild Gothic Sleeps quest, Churail will be replaced by Spira, but they both have the same effect. So there's no actual sort of Slayer level required or combat level required to be able to use Churail as a task, and Churail or Spira will assign anything between 15 to 50 Dwarfs per task. So for the best locations, there are two locations I mainly recommend, and obviously one of them will be for your low level choice of the standard dwarf and one for the high level choice of the Khaos Dwarf. So for the lower level standard dwarfs, the easiest place to find them and have a few around to kill is northeast of Falador, where the Dwarven Mountain is, just next to Ice Mountain, and there's quite a few dwarfs scattered around outside, and this is obviously where you can also buy like your dwarf cannon, etc. So most of you should know this location. But it's quite easy to get to in terms of from the lodestone, and they're all in quite close proximity of each other. You will occasionally get some that spawn inside the buildings, but obviously you can open the door to fight against those. So yeah, a pretty handy location. There is more underground, and obviously there are other dwarves in other locations across RuneScape, but this is sort of the main area I would recommend for the low level ones. Now, as for the Khaos Dwarves, now the location I recommend, because it doesn't have many requirements, is in the Taverley Dungeon, which is located underneath Taverley, south of the Lodestone. And the Khaos Dwarves inhabit a certain area of the dungeon, pretty much between where the demons are and sort of going further south towards where like the Black Knight's kind of underground fortress is. I'll have it being displayed on a map so you know where you're going. So it's quite easy to get to. Now there's a quick way through it. If you've got level 70 agility, you can climb through the pipe. You can also use a boosting item if you're sort of only slightly under that level requirement. Obviously you can go straight through the gate, past the demons, and then you encounter the Khaos Dwarves here. Otherwise you have to kind of go the long way around the dungeon, but it won't take much longer. It's just handy if you can use that shortcut. Now, the only downfall with this location is there's not that many Khaos Dwarves here, and they do have a sort of large respawn time, so I would suggest going to a higher populated world to increase the speed of respawning. But again, because you're using magic spells, well, hopefully you're using magic spells because of their weaknesses, it won't take you that sort of long to be able to kill them, and you're not having to run right up to them to engage combat. obviously you have got, and obviously it requires the completion of the quest, the Khaos Dwarf battlefield, but obviously that requires you to complete one of the Dwarven quests. I can't remember off the top of my head, I think it's Forgiveness of a Khaos Dwarf, but obviously there's other requirements in that go into it, so this is the best place to go with no sort of combat or quest requirements at all. So in terms of strategies using their weaknesses, so as I said, both types of dwarf are weak against magic spells and mostly air spells, but again the location can change the element. However, magic is definitely the approach I would go with both of these. For two reasons. One, it saves you having to go running up to every single one of them and engage them in melee combat, especially in the Khaos Dwarf area where they're quite spread out, but also you can use some of the evolution of combat abilities to your advantage where there is a few in one area. So you've got like the Dragon Breath and Chain spells that hit multiple enemies in a close proximity, so if you're utilising that, it's going to make it a lot easier for you. But in terms of the strategy, other than using their weaknesses, there's no real way of speeding it up. Obviously you're going to notice that the Khaos Dwarfs take a lot longer to kill than the standard Dwarfs, so it's up to you whether you want to go for speed rather than sort of XP gained, and obviously the drops and that as well are going to be different for the high levels compared to the low levels. Now, as for the Slayer Soul, now the likelihood of capturing a soul in general does have a few factors. So every kill has a chance of trapping a soul, which is affected by the base Slayer level compared to the creature's required level to kill. Obviously, the higher Slayer level you are, the more likelihood you're going to capture them. Also, being on a Slayer assignment for the monster also doubles the chance of trapping the soul. So it is worthwhile trying to get assigned as a soul if you're going to try and go about deliberately obtaining it. Just obviously make sure you've got your Ushabti in your inventory so you're able to capture the soul successfully. Now, as for recommended equipment, as both choices of dwarf are weak to magic based spells, I would recommend going with obviously a magic based equipment setup. And so what I generally do in my videos is sort of show a low level, medium level and high level sort of recommended equipment loadout, and it's all going to depend on what your current state of play is. You're either just starting with Slayer, and if you're getting to the Slayer assignment you're going to be a very low level. However, if you've already got 99 Slayer and you're trying to go about obtaining the soul, chances are you've got more resources to access the higher recommended equipment for the Slayer assignment. But again, obviously it is just recommended, so if you feel you want to mix up a little bit or go for something completely different, that's your choice. This is obviously just my recommendation. So I wanted to quickly talk about Social Slayer for those of you who don't know what that is. So Social Slayer is basically just like a normal Slayer assignment, however you can do it with a friend. So obviously I've been doing that myself with my good friend Thomas, aka Rune Movies, aka Mario Sonic, as we're both going about to obtain all the souls for our Slayer dungeon. Now how you go about doing this is with either your Slayer gem or if you have a Slayer helmet. If you right click that item you can choose the option co-op options and then can invite your friend to join a Slayer party with you. Do note though that once you're in a Slayer party, if you sort of go too far apart from each other or one of you logs out, you will exit the Slayer party and will have to rejoin, so just do take note of that. But basically you'll then, if one of you asks for a Slayer assignment from your respective Slayer master, you'll both share that assignment between the two of you, which is quite handy because some of you will be able to influence what assignments you get. Now obviously the only disadvantage is obviously there'll be less kills between the two of you. So for example, if Chirao assigns you 50, best case scenario is you'll have 25 each. But obviously the perks of it is that you'll complete the assignment quicker, which will mean you'll get more Slayer assignment points, but you'll also collect what's known as Slayer co-op points, which can be used for additional rewards. Now being in a co-op party doesn't affect the chance of getting a soul, so you're not going to be at a disadvantage of doing it. So if you and a friend are both trying to obtain all of your 151 souls, I would recommend doing this as it makes it a little bit more fun. And the rewards you can get from the co-op points are quite good. You have the ability to use food on your partner, you can both share the same protective equipment, there's all different varieties of things you can use, so it is definitely recommended if you're up for that sort of thing. So as for the key drops, so for the lower level choice of the standard dwarfs, the key drops to look out for, so obviously they always drop bones. If you've got a bone crusher handy, that's useful just to obviously automatically bury them and gain some extra XP. They do drop nature and chaos runes in a sort of minimal amount, but it's still worth collecting as they're stackable. And they also drop a variety of pickaxe and battle axes, so instead of sort of collecting these, I would use high alchemy or low alchemy, depending on what your magic level is, just to help sort of get some extra coins in your coin pouch without having to keep going back and forth from the bank. And they also drop a variety of charms as well, and the lower level dwarfs will give you 7 Slayer XP for each kill. Now as for the Khaos Dwarves, obviously because they're higher level, they're going to give you a bit more better rewards. So again, bones, obviously if you've got the bone crusher, definitely recommend having that equipped just to obviously get some easy XP there. They drop these things called the muddy keys. Now the muddy keys currently, obviously don't quote because the GE prices change all the time, they're around 9,000 coins each on the Grand Exchange, so they're worth collecting. They also drop a various amount of runes, nature, chaos, law, cosmic, all ones, death, all ones that are obviously quite good money wise, and again stackable, so worth collecting. They also drop a variety of mithril equipment such as shields, swords, helmets, etc. Again, I would use either high or low alchemy if you have the spell to do so, as it just helps to accumulate more coins without having to use backpack space. They drop grimy Ranar herbs. It is the only herb they do drop, but again the Ranar is worth a little amount on the GE, so worth collecting. And again, a variety of charms. And Khaos Dwarfs will give you a massive 20.6 Slayer XP per kill, so a lot more than their lower level equivalent, but obviously they're going to take a lot longer to kill because of the larger life points. So there we are, that's my guide on the Dwarf Slayer assignment. Now, I know not many of you will be watching this guide due to Dwarfs being quite a low level Slayer assignment. However, I do wish to complete a guide for every single possible Slayer assignment, and obviously those of you who are just starting off may find it worthwhile to watch. So myself and Thomas will be planning to make a guide on every single one of the Slayer monsters that can be assigned as a task, and also every monster that can have its soul obtained, as we're both trying to go for 151 in our codex. So obviously there will be a lot higher level Slayer monsters and higher level guides to come as we start get going, but we're just beginning with the low level ones. But if you are looking for more guides, just keep an eye out on my Slayer playlist, which these videos are added to, and more will be coming out as the coming weeks go by. But thank you very much for watching today. Please make sure you like, favourite, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks everyone, and happy slaying.